Yo, what's up? That's the lessons from my sons. Listen, I want to talk to you today about a lady who moved from the bottom of the heap to the top of the pile. Her name is Leah. Her story is recorded in Genesis, and it is chronicled in the names of her sons. As we follow Leah in her life, we find out that she's married to a man who doesn't love her. He doesn't care for her. In fact, he never wanted to marry her in the first place. He was tricked into this wedding. He met a woman named Rachel. He fell madly, deeply, passionately in love with her, and he agreed to work 7 years for her hand in marriage. But Rachel's father, who is also Leah's father, played a trick on him. On the wedding night, he whispered to Leah, "Go into the bedroom and pretend to be your sister." When Jacob woke up in the morning and he opened his eyes and he found Leah and not Rachel, he raced to his father's tent and he said, "Yo, man, what's up? I worked for Rachel. Why is Leah in my bed?" And the father said, Oh, I forgot to tell you. It's the fine print. Here, the older sister has to get married first. Then the younger sister can be married. So tell you what, finish the honeymoon week with this sister Leah, and I'll give you Rachel if you work another 7 years. Because he was smitten with the kitten Rachel, he decided to work the next 7 years. So Leah, bip, bam, thank you, ma'am, is hooked up with a man who doesn't love her. She finds herself on the bottom of the pile. But because they are married, they do the things that married people do, and Leah gets pregnant immediately. She names her first son Reuben. Reuben sounds like a nice name until you find out that it means afflicted and miserable. She gets pregnant again, and then she has her son Simeon. And Simeon's name means unloved. And bip, bam, thank you, ma'am, she gets pregnant a third time, and she has Levi. And Levi's name is unattached, hoping for a hookup. But then something happens. Something phenomenal happens. Leah gets pregnant a fourth time, and she has a son, but this time she doesn't memorialize her pain in his name. Instead, she calls him Judah, which means this time I will praise. As we follow the names of Leah's children, next she has Gad, and she says, "How fortunate." Then she gives birth to Asher, and she says, "Happy am I, women will call me happy." Then she has Issachar, and she says, "God has rewarded me." And lastly, she has Zebulun, and Zebulun means, "Now you've got to give me my honor and my respect." Do you hear the chronicle? Do you see the journey? As she goes from the bottom of the heap to the top of the pile, she uses her sons' names to explain her story. I looked at those steps and I said, these are like dominoes. She has done a domino rally. She has made one significant change. She's pushed one domino, which has pushed 6 other dominoes and put her in the place where she desired to be. The first domino that Leah pushed was the one when she said, "This time I will praise." Do you know what that "this time I will praise" means? She said, I'm going into the same old situation, but I'm doing a different thing. I'm going into the same old situation. I've been pregnant. I done had a son. But instead of memorializing my pain, I'm going to change his name. This time, I'm going to do something different. This time, I'm going to praise. This time, I'm going to be excited. This time, I'm going to rejoice. When she moves on to the next child after him, because she has chosen instead to praise rather than to complain, she begins to look at her situation differently. And she focuses her time, her attention, and her affection on God. She begins to enlarge her view of God. And that doesn't mean that she made God bigger. She made her view of God bigger. When she chose to praise, she began to see the activity of God's hand and God's plan in her life. Once she did that, it changed her entire perspective on her situation. And instead of looking at the situation itself, she began to celebrate what was happening in the midst of where she lived. In an area and a time when women were not valued and sons were great treasure, this woman now had 5 boys. I'm the mother of 4. I tell my sons, and I've told them since they were young, that I've given them nicknames. They are 401k, 403b, Roth, and IRA. I have told them, you are my retirement program. Leah has changed her understanding of her situation. With Gad's birth, she is no longer crying and wallowing in pity. Instead, she declares that she has a fortune. Do you know that you are rich not based on the money that you have, but the people who pour into your life? Next, Leah says she begins to cooperate with God's purpose for her life during the many stages that she travels through. She learned to accept the season that she was in. You go through different seasons. Where you are is not where you will always be. What you are doing is not what you will always do. At this point, Leah was a mother. But later on, she was a mother of a nation. Later on, she was a grandmother. Later on, she was a leader of a people. Then, as she cooperates with God's plan, she stops pining for what will never be, and she accepts and enjoys what is. She doesn't have a man who loves her. She has 5 men, now 6 men, who are crazy about her and who are available to her at her beck and call. Once she hits that domino, the next domino falls. She chooses to enjoy life. And as she chooses to enjoy life, she changes how she talks about her situation. And because she changes how she talks about her situation, the people who are listening to her talk change. She says, women will call me happy. Because she has changed her perspective, changed her words, having pushed that first domino of not declaring pain, but declaring praise, she is now at a point where the flock that she is floating with is flying higher than it was before. Do you see the transition from the bottom of the pile to the top of the heap? As Leah goes through all of these changes, the very thing that she wanted, the thing that she desired most, is what she chronicles in the last boy's name. When she names her final son, the name is Zebulun. Zebulun means rewarded. Zebulun means I got paid. Zebulun means I like where I am. Zebulun means I like who I am. Zebulun means I'm contented with my situation as it is. Zebulun is the top of the heap. She chronicles her journey in the names of her sons. And as she goes through, she hits that first domino. When you are in a painful situation, if you are in a difficult circumstance, I don't care what that situation is, it will not change until you decide to do something different. I've always heard that the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and over and over and over again and expecting a different result. Take a lesson from Leah. If you find yourself ever on the bottom of the pile and you want to get to the top of the heap, push one domino. Decide to do something different, and it will change everything else from there on. Thank you.